Hey, welcome to Loose Change. Please observe the fine print, as always. We've got more than a fine show for you. I'm Jim Evans. Thanks for joining us, and you'll be glad you did. Hang around. As we always do, top of the show, what's going on? Greg, as always, I'm laying at home on the couch, TV's on, dozing in and out, and I look up, and I'm like, hey, it's hockey. There's a big fight. People are shoving, kicking, punching, spitting. And I look closer, and it's like, it's just a news video of checkout line at Walmart. The Cleveland Cavaliers recently went to the White House, you may have heard, to be recognized for their NBA championship. And everyone had a real good time, and the team presented President Obama with a jersey. And despite being a Bulls fan, he held it up and he said, you know, this jersey works for me. That's funny because Clinton took jersey. It didn't work for her. President-elect Donald Trump says he feels sympathy for people in Northeast Ohio and Cleveland. That's right. And as a result, he will still strongly consider building a wall around Brown Stadium so fans can't get in. And Cleveland just missed out on having another parade. You probably know that, obviously, with the Indians near miss in the World Series. However, there will still be a big celebratory holiday parade in Cleveland. It'll start on East 9th, go to Superior, and then right through a Browns quarterback. Hey, stick around. The Vindicator's Ed Puskas joins us next, right here on Loose Change.
Armstrong Local Programming features our community like no one else. Meet your friends and neighbors at special events. Find the perfect pet. Celebrate our region's rich history or enjoy our natural wonders. Armstrong Local Programming is available online, on demand, and on your local Armstrong channel. Find the complete program schedule at ArmstrongOneWire.com. Local programming, exclusively from Armstrong. One Wire, infinite possibilities.
Welcome back to Loose Change. I'm Jim Evans, and I have the great pleasure to be joined by the sports editor of the Youngstown Vindicator, Ed Puskas. Ed, thanks so much for joining us. And
thanks for having me, Jim.
What we like to do off the top for those who don't know, if you give us just a little resume about yourself, where you're from, where you went to school, and how your career path took shape.
Well, I'm Cleveland born. Grew up in Cleveland, and then we moved to Ashtabula County when I was a kid. Grew up there, graduated from Jefferson High School in 1985. That fall I started in college and started working part-time for the Ashtabula Star-Beacon, and spent 6 years there, moved along, and eventually here I am.
You, when you were in high school, were you involved in any type of journalism thing that got you interested and then involved more so than you were?
That's pretty much where it started. I started out as the sports editor of the paper.
Cool.
In high school, the J High Life, as it was called, and my journalism advisor, Ed Pickard, if I can give a shout out to him,
sure,
is probably responsible for foisting me on Northeastern Ohio reading public.
Was sports always your thing? Did you ever maybe think or had done anything on the news side, or was it always on the sports?
Well,
end?
I've always been interested in sports, and that's pretty much always been my what puts the food on the table. But over the course of time in that job, you do other things, and there are things that happen that are kind of related to sports, but not exactly sports. And so I've done a few of those things.
What do you really like about it? About what you do?
Well, as most sports writers, I think across the board will tell you, you were kind of a frustrated athlete. There are very few of us in this business who were natural athletes, or we'd be doing something else. But we still love sports, and it gives us a way to be close to it and to be involved in it. I've gotten to go places and do things and meet people that I never would have had the chance to do those things if not for the job.
What would you say are the biggest challenges to doing what you do?
Well, I think the nightly challenge for us in the newspaper business is the deadline. It's getting the paper out on time. It's minimizing any mistakes that we might make. It's putting together a readable package of news and getting it to your porch or to your driveway or to your internet,
Sure,
as it is now, to your computer and phone as in a timely fashion.
Was there anybody that you really admired when you were younger and came up through your career, a person or persons that you maybe even borrowed a little bit from, as we all do, as we move in our careers?
Well, sure. I remember as a kid, and I don't know if this was just me or if I was weird or I just wasn't your average kid. But I remember reading Mike Royko's column every day.
I did too.
He wrote 5 a week, for the Tribune and the Sun-Times at different times, and the Star Beacon would reprint them, and I would, as soon as I got off the bus, I wanted to read what Royko was saying.
Why? What was it about him?
I think he a wordsmith, and he was sarcastic, and he was funny, but he could also be, he would find the touching moments and tell the story. He was the champion of the little guy in Chicago. And, I think as much as any person I've read growing up, he's responsible for me wanting to be around the newsroom and just seeing those papers come off the press.
Did you emulate him or borrow anything from his style as you?
Well, I would say I'm pretty sarcastic. I'll let the readers judge if I'm amusing or not at times. But I think he also had a passion, and I think if there's anything I'd like to transmit to people who read us, it's that when I write about something, I'm passionate about it. And I think if you don't have that passion, you're probably in the wrong business.
Is that what you would tell or give advice to younger aspiring writers, journalists, to maybe pick somebody to look at and follow and analyze and again maybe emulate?
I do tell people that, and I have as long as I've been a sports editor, I've hired people and brought them into the business, and I tell them if you haven't read our people. At the Vindicator, it's been Tom Williams, it's been Joe Scalzo over the years.
Right.
Really good writers who have honed their craft for years and know how to turn a phrase and how to get that little nugget. Joe is not at the Vindicator anymore, but he's been one of those guys. You could send him to a YSU practice and he'll come back with a story, and the lead will be about the YSU punter's eyebrows.
Yeah, I know.
And it just, he takes that little nugget and pulls at that thread and comes up with a story that you're like, I want more. And I think if I could get one point across to any aspiring journalist, whether it's somebody in my newsroom or somewhere else, I would say, read someone like that and be able to pull at those threads.
I assume that you allow, as you mentioned, the guys you did, that you have a pretty wide range, open latitude to be creative and go in a different direction as they want to do and get their story across.
Yeah, I kind of encourage them to come up with their own ideas and I kind of tell them, look, I want you to come to me and say, hey, I really want to write about this.
Okay.
I really want to, this is my idea, I want to run with it. Because if I come up with your idea, it might be one you really don't want to do. You might be doing something you think is boring or whatever. But so I really like my people to come to me and pitch ideas, and we always encourage that.
I think you know the answer to this, but how has the business changed since you started?
Well, there was no internet in
Right,
1985.
Yep.
I think I had a Commodore 64, when I was in high school, and you guys probably remember that. I remember playing the really, basic computer games, when I was in high school, and so we never thought, when I walked in the newsroom in 1985, electronic,
typewriters?
there were typewriters.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still. In dark corners of the newsroom, you will find them. They still do exist. We don't use them anymore,
Yeah.
but they do exist. So, I kind of missed out on the people who actually used the typewriter. By the mid '80s, it was all
Yeah.
computerized, but not like it is today. And really, that's the change. We're a 24-hour newsroom. Whereas before, when I started out, when I was 18, we were, maybe a 12-hour newsroom, and then the paper hit the streets. It would come out at, print at 2 or 3 in the morning. I forget what our deadline was at that time, but it's much different now. If something happens, if there's an accident or a shooting, or if it's sports related and it goes late, we have that now, and we're immediate.
Have the fundamentals remained the same in terms of being a writer-reporter?
I think so. I think that'll always stay the same.
Yeah.
Much like football, it's blocking and tackling. If you're not doing that, you're the Cleveland Browns. Just kidding.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, you have to be able to, develop sources. You have to be able to write a sentence, and you have to be able to do it in a timely fashion. Yeah, I mean, I think those are the blocking and tackling of our business.
Yeah, that's cool. You mentioned developing sources that you don't always think about in terms of someone who is a writer reporter. How do you do that? How do you become good at doing that, or what does it take to do that?
Well, I think for me, it's more about being able to talk to people, being able to listen. I think I probably am more comfortable if you haven't figured that out now by watching this. I'm more comfortable listening than I am talking.
You're doing great.
Thank you. But I think it comes down to also having people be able to trust you.
There you go.
If somebody tells you something in confidence, as a source, the first thing you learn in this business, one of the first things I learned anyway, was you never burn a source. Because they're not going to trust you after that, and word will get around, and the next guy won't trust you, and then the guy after that won't trust you. So you have to be able to develop trust and maintain it.
Do you have a sense that of perhaps younger people maybe not moving towards a career as yours as much as maybe they once were, like when you got into it?
I haven't really noticed that,
Okay.
to be honest. Now, my daughter's a college freshman, and she has no interest apparently in following in the family business. And I can't say that I blame her. I mean, you grow up around your dad, maybe working nights and weekends a lot, and that's the nature of sports. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. But it's a business that doesn't appeal to everyone. She's interested in teaching, and I
Right.
love that about her. But I do think that there are still going to be people, there still are people, who want to be involved even as the business changes and evolves. They still want to be storytellers, and they still want to be news hounds. And I don't think that's ever going to go away.
I hope not. It's important for actually where we are right now in our country in regards to the media and everything. So we won't. That's a different show and a different story. But would you recommend to young people, hey, this is something you should maybe give a stab at, swing at?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are as many opportunities as our business evolves. There are as many opportunities as there were, I think, in the 80s.
Really? Okay.
It's just that we do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
I hesitate to use that hackneyed term. They call it backpack journalism, where you've got your recorder and your video camera and all this stuff right there, and there's a sense of immediacy to it, where before you had we didn't have cell phones in '85 when I started. Maybe we had big phones in your car, yeah. But now you have all the tools. You can really cover a story and put your stuff out there right now, and I think that's really exciting for people.
The immediacy has changed, hasn't it, because of all the technology?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're a 24-hour newsroom.
Yeah.
The other day, as I was walking through the newsroom, I think Tim Ryan announced that he was going to challenge Nancy Pelosi
Right.
for the House minority leadership. So, whereas in the old days that would have taken a few hours to
Yeah.
develop that story, there wouldn't have been an immediate text alert, an immediate website alert. In 1985, that story would have come out the next day. Now it's out there. It's bam. You've got it. It's on your phone. It's on your computer, tablet. It's there.
We're going to take a break. You can hang around, right?
I will.
Ed Puskas, Vindicator sports editor. We'll be back with Ed right after we do this.
Satellite? Let's take a look at the facts. Only EXP from Armstrong offers award-winning local customer support and free service calls with no contracts and no early termination fees. EXP also includes Zoom Internet, the area's fastest, plus an intuitive user interface powered by TiVo for the ultimate TV experience. As you can see, when it comes to EXP versus satellite, there's just no comparison. EXP from Armstrong, this changes everything.
Back on Loose Change, along with Vindicator sports editor Ed Puskas. I'm Jim Evans. And Ed, in your position as it is, briefly take us through like how the day plays out and how it all comes together on the newspaper.
Well, it starts out, I'll wake up, anywhere around noon or 11 a.m., sometimes later,
So
sometimes
late
earlier,
night
depends
yeah.
depends how the previous night went. But my routine is, the first thing I do is look at Twitter, which, I find to be a really nice tool. Then I check my emails, and then I do a little surfing, find out if my budget's going to change, what the stories of the day seem to be at that time. When I get to the office, the first thing I do is finish off the budget, decide what's going in the paper, and hopefully we've already decided what the main package is going to be, unless there's a breaking news element. For example, tonight we have a YSU basketball game against Westminster. That likely is to be our main package. And then from there it's just plugging holes in that section and working with our designer to kind of put it all together.
But you have a template where there's certain elements that are always there, right? I mean,
right.
That just kind of goes with the flow every day.
Yep. It's a little different than other places that I've worked in that, the last place I worked as sports editor, I was also the designer.
Oh, okay.
So we have people that do that job, in conjunction with the sports editor. If I'm what they call the slot man that night. The slot man is the guy who plots out the section, decides what goes where and everything like that. And I do that typically 5 nights a week.
Is the Sunday section the biggest challenge, or is there another day that's more of a challenge, or is it all pretty much the same across the board?
I think really for 10 weeks or 12 weeks of the high school football season, the Saturday section is the biggest challenge, because we're covering anywhere from 4 to 8 games.
Right.
All live. We'll be taking pictures at 3 or 4 games. All that stuff's coming in under deadline crunch at between 9:30 and 11:30 or midnight, depending on how it goes. That's still the biggest challenge.
We often hear I hear people talk, our side of the business, how things have changed and maybe this might go away or that might go away. Do you think the newspaper side is in any type of jeopardy in terms of, just longevity in terms of existence? Are younger people embracing it, or is it more, the internet and Twitter and everything that they're more hands-on with?
I think that, in terms of getting that, I'm old school, obviously.
Me too.
I need that. I want that paper.
Me too,
I want to carry it with me.
Yeah.
I want to pick it up. When I stop and get a donut and a coffee in the morning or whatever it is. I want that paper. And but I'm smart enough, or I guess I don't know if I'm smart enough, but I'm realistic enough to understand that how we deliver that news is going to change. It's already changed.
Yes.
So I know for example that my daughter wasn't always leading a path out to the paper box like I did as a kid to get that paper. She would look online and on her phone and on her computer. And so I think that's how we have to, reach out to the readers. I think we're always going to be there
good.
in some form. It's just how we deliver it is in the process of changing. And I think, I've worked with people who said, maybe in our lifetimes, there won't be a printed product, but I still think there will be. I just think that there's enough of us old school people out and about that we kind of like that experience. It's like books. I can't get into the Kindle thing. I need a book. I need the smell of the book. I need the feel of the book and turning the pages. And that's how I feel about papers.
That's how we were brought up. If you weren't doing this, what do you think you'd be working on?
I'd like to think I've got that novel somewhere buried in my head. I think I'd probably be doing that. Hopefully, it's hard to make a living at that. But
Maybe at some point, though.
yeah, I'd probably be a frustrated novelist, some kind of writer. I think if I needed to put bread on the table and I wasn't in this business, I think I'd be still doing something related to sports, to be honest.
If you had to, send a message out to viewers or whoever, listeners or readers, that what is it about what you guys do that you'd say, hey, you should, check out our section, our paper?
Well, I think there's things that we do that people who are interested in sports, especially local sports, high school, YSU, community sports, that they can't get anywhere else. Mm-hmm. I think we're still able to bring you that, and we're still able to give you the people behind those stories. And I think that's the thing that I think, as much as how to turn a phrase or how to construct a story, I want our people to be able to tell the stories behind. Okay, the game was 35-14, but what's the real story? Get me inside the head of the people that are involved.
Has coverage of, I know it changed for us, when we were doing the TV, on the TV newsroom, the coverage of high school football, and I know on Friday night that's expanded over recent years. Has that been the case for you guys, or has it pretty much always been the
I think
same?
it's definitely been a bigger part of what we do.
Yeah.
Even before I got here to
Okay.
the Vindicator, they developed the Blitz website,
Right.
and the Blitz section, the preseason Blitz section. We do all those things, and it's a reflection of how important high school football is to this area.
Yeah.
You've been here for years, and we're just in a part of the country, northeastern Ohio, western PA. Some other places come to mind like Texas, Florida, where high school football is king. And I think, our population is diminished a little bit over the years, last
Yes.
25 years, but I still think, as obvious with Kennedy playing this weekend in the state semifinals, we still play a pretty good brand of football here.
How did it compare? How does it compare to where you grew up, and obviously the Cleveland area? But we know what they do. How would you compare this area to up around that part of the
I think
state?
it compares favorably to Cleveland, where I went to high school. We didn't have, and still don't up there, the kind of state qualifying and state title teams that that the Tri-County area down here has. We didn't have an Ursuline or Mooney. Now, when I was a kid in the 70s, Ashtabula St. John had a really nice program. Urban Meyer, you may have heard of him.
Yeah.
He played for St. John, was a three-sport athlete that I followed when I was a kid.
That's right, yeah.
Played baseball, played football. I can't remember if he played basketball or not. Might have run track. But I know baseball and football, he was it in Ashtabula at that time. And, as I grew up, we didn't have, our teams didn't go to the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
It was a special year when one of those
Okay.
teams made it.
Well, Cleveland's pro football team is doing good right now. I mean, St. Ignatius is still rolling along. So but I've said this for a long time that we are here in such a unique sports market, and that we're right in the middle of the two major league cities in Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and that's really cool if you're doing any type of sports journalism.
Exactly, and what we have to do is we strike a balance. I know if we get into a situation where, let's say the Steelers are hot, and there's a lot of Steelers news, there's a lot of Steelers winning, if whatever. I know I'm going to get a phone call. I know I'm going to get an email. I know I'm going to get whatever from a Browns fan saying,
Sure.
You're in Ohio. What are you doing? But there's a certain segment of people, and some of them are Pittsburgh born and bred or Western PA born and bred. Some of them are Ohio, people in Ohio that for some reason, I can't explain it, they just root for the Steelers. I think we should deport them or, just kidding. But, we are right in the middle. I mean, you can draw a line right through this valley, and on one side you have Pittsburgh fans, Cleveland fans. It used to be I would say at one point when the Browns were good, maybe it was 70-30,
more Cleveland, yeah.
60-40 Cleveland.
Yeah.
Since the Browns went away and then came back in their current awful incarnation, and I say that as a Browns fan.
Me too.
It's just split. It's 50-50, and maybe even a little more Steelers. But I still think, I guess in my heart of hearts, we are in Ohio.
Yes.
So I think the Browns are our team.
Still an Ohio market. And you know what? Either way, and certainly when Pittsburgh teams are doing well, it's good for our area. And people were energized by what the Steelers are doing, and maybe the Pirates or the Penguins.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh is really lucky right now in that they have 3 teams that are really good.
Yep.
I mean, the Steelers.
Yep.
The Steelers are the Steelers. You have to, even as a Browns fan, you have to respect what they've done.
I do. Yeah.
The Penguins are defending Stanley Cup champions. The Pirates are had those 20 years of wandering in the desert, I guess, but they're back now.
Mm-hmm.
They have some talent. The leadership is there, and I think really. The same is true in Cleveland with one exception. The Indians, came within.
Look what happened there.
Yeah, came within, a key hit or two of winning the World Series. The Cavs are the defending NBA champions. It's just the Browns that aren't kind of pulling their weight with the competition right now.
We're almost out of time. Just over a moment to go. YSU, as you mentioned, back in the playoffs. How do you feel about what Coach Pelini has done and will do?
I'm not surprised at all.
Right, yeah.
I thought you could have made a case that with a couple of breaks, they could have been in the playoffs last year. But they're there now. It's been the first time in a decade. I think people are kind of coming around. Bo kind of has his ways, and he's a no-nonsense. If you look up no nonsense in a dictionary, his picture's there. So. I think the players at Nebraska really responded to it. I think the YSU players are responding to it. And I'm not surprised at all that he's got them 8-3.
Me too. And just to wrap it up, as of this taping, the Browns still have yet to win a game. Will they win a game this season?
I said at the beginning, no way they're going 0-16. I said no way.
Me too.
They always win a game or two that they shouldn't. I thought 3-13, maybe 2-14.
Yeah, right.
I still think they're going to win a game, but I don't have any empirical evidence to cite. Certainly nothing I saw in the last game against the Steelers leads me to believe that they're going to win a game. But I think they're going to get lucky at some point. They should have won the game against Miami.
Yes, they've had a couple.
But what troubles me is, and we've already talked about it, is they're not getting any better. They were better the first month of the season than they are now, and that's what troubles me.
Yeah, one win isn't all that great, but I guess it is better than 0-16. I don't know. Ed, it was great to talk with you. Thanks so much for coming in, and best of luck the rest of the way.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have a chance to talk again. All right, we'll be back to wrap it up right here on Loose Change as we do. Hang around.
Customer service is vital in any industry. If you need something, you need it now. You don't need to wait on it. We probably have 100+ employees. Most of those are on the internet or using the data on a daily basis. We depend a lot on the internet and on that data capabilities that Armstrong provides us. Without a quality internet, we wouldn't be able to work in that capacity. It would slow us down tremendously. I don't think I can remember once that we had the internet was out or down that it affected business. I don't think Wolf Brothers could find another supplier for data services that will service us like Armstrong does.
Well, that's got to do it for this edition of Loose Change. Sorry, we've run out of time, right, Greg? Yeah, we've run out of time, right, Greg? Yeah. Thanks so much to Ed Puskas, Vindicator sports editor. Great time with him, and for Greg Roden, I'm Jim Evans. And hey, we'll see you next time right here on Loose Change. We will.